It began with a sound that no one expected. A beat dropped, echoing through social media timelines. The kind of beat meant to announce a return, a rebirth, a man reclaiming his throne. But instead of applause, it was met with laughter. The name on the song was legendary, Will Smith. The same man who once symbolized confidence, charisma, and clean success. The man who conquered television, music, and Hollywood itself. Yet now, his return was not being celebrated. It was being ridiculed. Everywhere people looked, there were reaction videos, memes, and disbelief. Is this really Will Smith? They asked. The world had not forgotten the man who slapped another at the Oscars. They had been waiting for his next move. But no one could have predicted it would be this. A glossy, empty anthem called Pretty Girls, drenched in repetition and confusion. Behind the lights and the auto-tuned voice, there was something deeper, something unsettling. Because the question was no longer, why is the song bad? It was, what happened to Will Smith? And to answer that, we have to go back. Before the music, before the scandal, before the downfall, there was a time when Will Smith seemed untouchable. From the playful energy of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to the commanding hero of Men in Black, he was the embodiment of a new kind of fame. Effortless, charming, safe for every audience. Every smile, every line delivered on screen felt perfectly timed. He was not just an actor. He was an idea, the idea that talent, charisma, and positivity could take you anywhere. When he moved into music, that image only grew stronger. Songs like Gettin' Jiggy With It and Men in Black captured the late 90s optimism. Fun, catchy, clean. He was the family-friendly superstar who made success look easy. But over time, the cracks began to show. As the years passed, the world changed. Fame became faster, louder, more brutal. Audiences started to crave vulnerability and authenticity. Will's perfection, once admired, began to feel like a mask. Every smile looked rehearsed, every interview too polished. And behind that smile was a man aging in an industry that worships youth. A man whose family had become public figures, often overshadowing him. His wife spoke openly about private matters. His children rebelled against expectations. The once perfect image of the Smith family began to crumble. The man who once could do no wrong was suddenly struggling to stay relevant in a world that had moved on. After the infamous Oscars night, when his hand connected with Chris Rock's face and the world gasped, Will Smith disappeared. He went silent, hidden behind public apologies and soft-focus interviews. But silence cannot last forever, not in Hollywood. Months later, whispers began. Will was working on something new, something bold, a song that would reintroduce him not as an actor, but as the artist he used to be. It was supposed to be redemption, a sign that he was still here, still confident, still capable. When Pretty Girls finally dropped, it arrived with the production value of a superstar, expensive visuals, luxury sets, and all the energy of a comeback. But something was off. The song did not sound like growth. It sounded like imitation. Lines repeated without meaning. Words forced into rhyme. References to money, women, and luxury. The same cliches heard 1,000 times before. Fans who once looked up to him found themselves confused. Was this the same Will Smith who once rapped about parents, responsibility, and joy? Or was this a man desperately chasing an image that no longer fit him? As the beat carried on, the lyrics told a story, but not the one he intended. Instead of a rebirth, it felt like an echo of a man lost in his own legend. You don't gotta wait in line tonight. You too fine for the line tonight. 5 + 5, you a dime tonight. When listeners heard these lines, they froze. The rhyme was lazy, the message unclear, the flow awkward. It felt like a parody of modern rap rather than a contribution to it. For years, Will Smith had been celebrated for his intelligence, his wordplay, his ability to balance humor and depth. But these lyrics? They felt empty. Critics called them painfully generic. Fans joked that even parody rappers on YouTube wrote better bars. The deeper problem was not just the lack of creativity, it was the lack of self-awareness. Will was no longer the youthful star joking about the world. He was a 56-year-old man singing about pretty girls and BBLs in a way that felt disconnected from his reality. The internet erupted with confusion and mockery. Reaction channels dissected every line, frame by frame. Some called it the cringiest comeback ever. Others said it was a sign that fame had trapped him, that he no longer had people around him willing to say no. Each verse became a symbol of decline. A man once known for clever storytelling was now repeating meaningless lines just to fill a beat. The illusion of the confident icon shattered with every word. The irony is that somewhere within all the repetition and awkward wordplay, there was a message. Buried deep beneath the surface, Will seem to be saying something positive, that beauty is not just what we see, but what we are. Lines like, "I ain't talking about just the pretty you see, but the pretty you be," hinted at something more sincere. He wanted to celebrate inner beauty, to remind people that worth goes beyond appearance. But the problem was how it was said. Because surrounding that one good line were dozens that contradicted it. Lines that objectified women, reduced them to body parts, or compared them to ice cream flavors. The message became lost, tangled in its own contradictions. Audiences could not take the positive message seriously when the delivery felt so shallow. It was like trying to preach respect while laughing at your own sermon. The result was confusion. Viewers did not know whether to laugh, cringe, or feel sorry. It was not just a bad song. It was a reflection of a man caught between two identities. The old Will, who wanted to inspire, and the new Will, who wanted to fit in with a culture that had long since moved past him. When the music video dropped, it made everything worse. In it, Will plays a man undergoing therapy, surrounded by beautiful women and surreal imagery. The tone wavers between serious and absurd, as if unsure what story it wants to tell. Some viewers thought it was meant to be satire, a self-aware jab at his own image. Others saw it as tone-deaf and disconnected from reality. The imagery of therapy hinted at introspection, but the lyrics undermined that entirely. Instead of redemption, it looked like denial, a man trying to laugh his pain away while the world watched him unravel. Online, the comments filled with disbelief. "This can't be real. He used to be my hero. It feels like watching someone implode in real time." Every frame of the video became a metaphor for his struggle, expensive, glossy, but hollow inside. For the first time in decades, Will Smith was not admired or envied. He was pitted, and that was perhaps the most painful fall of all. The world had seen Will Smith as unstoppable, but now they were watching him fade, not in silence, but to the rhythm of his own misguided comeback. When the song hit streaming platforms, reactions spread like wildfire. Comment sections filled with disbelief, then mockery. Tweets turned into memes, memes turned into viral videos. People who once defended Will now questioned what had happened to him. One viral comment captured the sentiment perfectly. "This isn't Will Smith. This is a midlife crisis on a beat." Across social media, people began dissecting every word, every frame, searching for meaning in the chaos. Some argued that he was trolling, that maybe it was all part of a larger artistic message. Others said it was just delusion, the final symptom of fame gone unchecked. What made it worse was how easily people laughed. It was not outrage this time. It was embarrassment. Watching a man once admired by millions stumble in slow motion. Reaction channels posted side-by-side comparisons of Will's older songs and this new one, pointing out the decline in lyricism, flow, and meaning. Even casual listeners noticed the difference. The once carefully constructed identity of Will Smith, the eternal optimist, had been replaced by someone unrecognizable. And beneath the laughter, there was something darker, a collective sadness. Because the world was not just mocking a bad song, it was mourning the loss of a hero. The internet had turned on Will, and there was no coming back from that kind of silence. The heart of Pretty Girls was a message that never quite knew what it wanted to be. Was it a love song? A club anthem? A meditation on inner beauty? The song seemed to change with every verse, its identity slipping through its own contradictions. Lines like, "I like BBLs, and that stands for Bad Women Link Up," clashed with his attempt to say that true beauty lies within. The lyrics contradicted themselves, creating a paradox that listeners could not untangle. Some fans tried to defend him. They said he was being ironic, that it was all a critique of shallow culture. But if it was satire, it failed to signal it. The tone, the visuals, the sound, none of it pointed to self-awareness. It simply looked like confusion wrapped in gloss. And perhaps that was the truest reflection of the man himself. A performer once praised for control, now unable to control the story around him. His words, once his strength, now betrayed him. It was not that Will Smith had lost his voice. It was that he no longer knew what he wanted to say. The song became a mirror, not of confidence, but of identity lost in noise. It was not music. It was a cry, masked as melody. The world had already seen Will Smith crack once before, on that night at the Oscars. The night that turned him from hero to villain in a single motion. But this was different. This time, he was not angry. He was exposed. The glossy perfection that had defined him for decades was slipping away. In interviews, he spoke of healing and self-reflection, but in the song, there was none of that. Only desperation disguised as celebration. The video's strange therapy scenes, the repetition of empty lyrics, the forced charm, all of it painted a man trying to convince himself he was okay. Critics noticed the pattern. Every comeback attempt after a fall, the apology videos, the family oversharing. Now this song seemed less about redemption and more about erasing embarrassment. But embarrassment cannot be erased with a smile or a beat. And as the audience watched, many realized they were not witnessing a musical experiment. They were witnessing a man struggling to accept that his time had passed. The mask had cracked, and through it, the world saw something it had never seen before in Will Smith. Vulnerability without direction. Will Smith's problem was not just a bad song. It was timing. The cultural landscape he once dominated had transformed. Authenticity had replaced image. Emotion had replaced perfection. The audience no longer wanted flawless heroes. They wanted flawed truth. Will's attempts to sound modern, referencing social media slang, mimicking trends, borrowing from younger artists, only highlighted how out of place he had become. What once felt like innovation now felt like imitation. Younger listeners saw it as pandering, while older fans felt alienated. The generation that grew up with Fresh Prince could not connect with Pretty Girls, and that disconnect was fatal. Because fame is not just about talent, it is about timing. When Will tried to step back into a world that had already moved on, it was like watching a legend walk onto a stage that no longer existed. The applause had faded, the lights had dimmed, and in their place was a silence that no amount of energy could fill. In the end, Pretty Girls became more than just a bad song. It became a symbol, a warning about fame, ego, and the illusion of control. Because the truth is, Will Smith's failure was not about one song. It was about what that song revealed. Behind every lyric and awkward rhyme was a man chasing the ghost of who he used to be. The world had changed, but Will could not let go of the past, the version of himself that everyone once adored. That is the tragedy of fame. It freezes people in time. It convinces them that the applause will never stop, that the love will always return. But when it fades, when the world moves on, all that remains is the echo of a name that no longer means what it used to. Will Smith's song was never really about pretty girls. It was about validation, about wanting to feel seen again, about the desperate need to believe that the world still cared. But the world had already answered. The mystery of Pretty Girls was never in the lyrics, nor the beat, nor the video. It was in the silence that followed. Because sometimes, the loudest sound in fame is the sound of nobody listening. Will Smith's legacy will not be erased by one song. His achievements, his influence, his moments of brilliance, they will remain. But so too will this chapter. The reminder that even the brightest stars can lose their way when the light becomes too blinding. Pretty Girls was not just a song. It was a mirror, reflecting a man standing at the edge of his own myth. And as the music fades, what remains is not the beat, not the fame, not even the laughter, but the quiet truth that behind every legend, there is a human being still trying to find himself.